right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for Let's Talk Cold Brew. So today we're going to spend an hour delving really deep into what's really become a really vibrant new product category in specialty coffee, which is cold brew coffee. And what's so interesting about it for Sustainable Harvest is it really represents a new opportunity to source great new coffees and to help our customers solve really interesting problems. So with cold brew coffee, what we're given the opportunity to do is introduce a whole new segment of coffee drinking consumers in the US to specialty coffee. When we think about the products that have been out there, like frappuccinos and cold coffee that comes in a carton or a can that's been available at convenience stores, grocery stores, that was the market up until recently, when roasters like Stumptown Coffee and Blue Bottle came on the scene with ready-to-drink cold brew coffee. And then other innovators like Portland Roasting that are working with customers sort of at the highest level of quality coffee all the way down to fast food customers where you wouldn't expect to find a great cup of coffee are bringing amazing cold brew really to the masses. So I'm Marcus, Sustainable Harvest Relationship Coffee Manager based in Portland, and I am happy to introduce Nathanael May from Portland Roasting and Stephen Vick from Blue Bottle Coffee. So with that, I'm going to have Nathanael take it away with his presentation on Portland Roasting and cold brew and fast food.
Hi. So Portland Roasting started in the mid-90s as a very tiny wholesale roaster. And from there, we expanded just very recently into changing the definition of what Portland Roasting's brand is to include retail and licensed opportunities for us to present our coffee. And so for the longest time at Portland Roasting, the only way to experience cold brewed coffee was at a demo. And we just found that cold brew was a really easy way to prepare a lot of coffee ahead of time. It was something that not a lot of people had heard about, and so we were able to share that with them just one-on-one in little tiny demo environments. The very first time I tasted cold brew coffee was at the International Pinot Noir competition in wine country in Oregon. And I took a sip of it. I'd heard of cold brew before, but I'd never tried it. I took a sip of it, and it was like drinking a cup of pure chocolate. It turns out that Finca El Manzano's El Salvadorian coffee makes incredible cold brew. And I was completely hooked. And we started using cold brew again and again and again in more and more demo opportunities, but we could never see a way for that to work for our wholesale customers until we started selling our coffee to the entire fast food chain Burgerville, which is based in Northern Oregon and Southern Washington. And Burgerville's main goal is to produce excellent food that is locally and sustainably sourced, and to do that really quickly for as many customers as possible. And they wanted to up their coffee game, and so they came to us and said, we'd like to have better coffee. And we started selling them coffee that they could brew. But inside their coffee milkshakes was still soluble coffee. And they just couldn't figure out a way to get good concentrated coffee in there because they didn't want to implement espresso machines. They wanted to do something that was fast. And then we thought, man, what is fast and concentrated that you can make a ton of and taste great? And cold brew coffee was that thing. And so now Burgerville, for all of their iced coffee and for all of their coffee milkshakes, they use a Papua New Guinea cold brew that we sourced for them from Papua New Guinea. When they came to us and said, we'd really like to use your coffee in our shakes, but we don't know how, and we presented to them the idea of doing cold brew, we gave them 8 different choices of coffee, and each one of those coffees we thought made a delicious cold brew. But what we found was that their customers, and most of our customers, are not looking for the things that I look for when I want a great coffee, which is brightness and acidity and sweetness. They wanted chocolate, and they wanted nuts, and they wanted smooth, and they didn't want the word acidity to creep into their coffee at all. And the coffee that we were able to source from the Madan estate in Papua New Guinea made the cold brew that they were really looking for and dreamed of. And so today, if you go into Burgerville, you can order a Mocha Perk shake, which is incredible. I don't mind that I love a chocolate coffee milkshake. Their iced coffee, which they mix with whole milk and caramel or vanilla. And then in their hot coffee, which it turns out pairs incredibly well with a burrito. And I historically never drank coffee alongside a burrito until Burgerville introduced me to that, and now all the time. So in an implementation at a fast food restaurant, the quality control was of paramount importance to them. At every Burgerville you go to, you needed to get exactly the same tasting Mocha Perk shake, exactly the same tasting iced coffee, and exactly the same tasting hot coffee. And so we have been working with them to implement a quality control program where we have regular visits with all of their stores undercover, testing their coffee and tasting their cold brew to ensure that they are changing it often and that they are rebrewing it every day, to ensure that everything that you get from Burgerville is not only consistent, but it's consistently excellent. The thing that we can say in general about fast food in the United States is that it is consistently mediocre. And consistent is the only positive thing we can say. But Burgerville is trying to do something different and trying to do something better. And so it was imperative that with the way that we control the quality of the coffee going into their cold brew, that we did something better as well. When we were sourcing for cold brew, we looked at every possible region. Historically, we found that coffees from Central America worked best for the palates of our customers. But we started looking into Asia and Indonesia when Burgerville was looking for something even more different than that. And it was with some tribal coffees outside the Medan estate in Papua New Guinea that we found Burgerville's perfect match. But what was important when we took the demo to Burgerville and we said, here's what we'd like to offer you for cold brew, it was important that every single one of the coffees that we sourced was excellent as cold brew, because cold brew is interesting in that not necessarily every coffee is going to blow your socks off when you brew it cold, just like not every coffee is going to blow your socks off when you brew it as espresso. So every coffee we bring in goes through the regular quality control of cuppings and brewing production roasts, but now we also add in testing it as cold brew. And when we started testing it as cold brew, we have found some incredible surprises. One of our espresso blends, our most popular espresso blends, is absolutely face-meltingly amazing as cold brew. And so now that is the only cold brew that we sell in our cafe until we find something else that is equally incredible. But yeah, it takes experimentation and it takes consistent quality control, because cold brew, it's an enigma sometimes. But it's an enigma that can be solved.
That's great. So Nathanael, can you talk just a little bit about the process of getting Burgerville up to speed with brewing cold brew? Because I can imagine when you have a process that's taking 12 to 24 hours to prepare,
right,
it can be messy. If I'm not mistaken, they do that all in the stores, right?
They do.
You're not
They do
sending
it
them
all in the
canned
stores.
coffee, or...
So 2 years ago when we introduced cold brew into Burgerville, we introduced it alongside another one of their promotional items that they were offering. And what Burgerville does, which I think is amazing, they bring everybody to their restaurant supplier, all of their store managers and assistant managers, and they roll out a new exciting thing. So maybe it's strawberry chicken wraps, which happened to be what it was when they introduced cold brew. And so every store manager and assistant manager comes to this restaurant supply place and is introduced to exactly how to make the strawberry chicken wrap. And at that event, we taught them all how to make cold brew exactly the way that we wanted to make it. Burgerville sourced a very specifically sized small bucket to produce the cold brew in, to produce exactly what they needed. We got all of the rest of the implements from Toddy in Colorado, but then Burgerville is using a very bespoke, specifically for Burgerville system that is making pretty incredible coffee.
That's terrific. I'm lucky because I live in the Northwest and know Burgerville, but can you describe it a little bit? Like, the way that you've described their food and their processes, it sounds like it would be fine dining. And I know that when you walk in, it looks a lot more like a McDonald's.
That's true.
So I don't know if you can just talk a little bit about what.
Yeah, so when you go into Burgerville, it's essentially McDonald's, only higher end. They're trying to do the same thing that McDonald's is doing, which is providing consistent food fast, but do it with higher quality ingredients and ingredients that they can be proud to use. And so all of their beef is sourced locally. All of their buns are made by a bakery in Portland. And the experience when you go there, if you go there for the first time, is going to be, from the time you order to the time you get your food, identical to almost every other fast food experience you're going to have. It's when you eat the food that you realize that you're tasting something a little bit better. So you're still getting a burger wrapped in paper, in a paper bag. You're still getting a soda in a paper cup with a plastic lid and a straw. But their goal is that what comes out of those packages is a higher quality product.
You're also getting a Marionberry milkshake, too.
Yeah, and the seasonal milkshakes are amazing.
When I was opening up the Stumptown, helping open up the Stumptown stores in Seattle, I had to drive up every week. And it was always the Centralia Burgerville that I'd stop for my lunch on the way up or my breakfast or whatever. And I want one right now.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, and that's probably a good segue to talking about what Blue Bottle's doing, Stephen, is in both cases for both your companies, this cold brew coffee represents this great opportunity to find like shockingly good coffee in sort of surprising places. So I guess thank you both for that. But let's hear a little bit about Blue Bottle and your ready to drink and iced coffee progress.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen from Blue Bottle. So when I started working at Blue Bottle, it was early 2012, and actually we're going to get there we go. I had just left Intelligentsia Coffee, and I was still actually living in Chicago, and I flew out to have a meeting with James Freeman, the founder of Blue Bottle, who I had never met before that day. And I'd heard some things about him, so I didn't exactly know what to expect. And I met him at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and so I'm just like walking around looking at art, and then James comes up, and we sit down, and he's like, I have a gift for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And he pulled out of a little soft-sided cooler these two little bottles. And he's like, this is something we're working on. And this was like the very first, the idea was that I was going to maybe come on to talk a little, to do quality control at Blue Bottle. And this was my first experience meeting James, and he pulls out these bottles. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool. And I remember drinking in New Orleans later that day and thinking it was really delicious. I'd never actually had the drink before, ever. It turns out in all of our retail locations, we currently have 15 stores and about 8 more under construction. But our most popular drink is this drink called the New Orleans iced coffee. It's sort of our version, if you will, of a Frappuccino. It was James's idea of having something that was mildly sweetened, but still really, really tasty and good on a warm afternoon. So in the New Orleans iced coffee, which we've been serving in our cafes since the beginning, there's cold brew coffee, and then we also brew it with a roasted root that's called chicory. Historically, for those of you who might not know, when coffee prices were really high in Europe, in the 1800s, people in France traditionally would replace coffee with chicory. It doesn't taste like coffee, but they needed something to replace it with. And so in New Orleans, still to this day, if you get coffee in a lot of places, more traditional coffee places, your coffee would be mixed with chicory. It's a spice. With certain coffees, it goes really well, but you do have to find the right coffee. And then there's a little bit of cane sugar in here too, and also organic milk. Most of what we do at Blue Bottle is certified organic, from our food all the way down to our coffees. So this product also too is a certified organic, offering the coffee, the chicory, and everything all the way down, the milk, sugar, that's what I'm forgetting. So this actually has been in development since before I started at Blue Bottle, but our final version of it just was released in March of this last year. And it did take a lot of work. Anytime you want to package milk in the United States, there is a lot of regulations you have to go through. We worked with a food science company called Matson Food in the South Bay, who did all of the testing for us. We had to do almost a year of testing to see what the shelf life was, to see what the caffeine content was, the bricks content, how long the shelf life could be, what the pasteurization would look like. And so in the process, we learned a lot. First, of course, we had to figure out what coffee to use. So we just had 5-gallon buckets all over the roastery of different coffees, trying to figure out which is something, if this product became popular, it's something that we could source consistently. Obviously, that would be at a price point that would work. There's a lot of production that goes into this, so getting it out at a $4 price point per container is the goal and where it's at, so we have to find a good price coffee, relatively. One of the hardest pieces, I'm pretty good at sourcing coffee, but I had to source a larger quantity of certified organic chicory. So we're buying half containers of chicory now from France, and that was actually, I have to, Allegro actually helped me with spice sourcing. They do some of that, so Darren was able to help me out with sourcing some of that. The sugar is not that hard, and then finally the milk. The way the process works, we ended up choosing a Peruvian coffee, a couple different ones. One of them is actually from Negrisa, a Sustainable Harvest coffee, a relationship that we started with Sustainable Harvest. The Peruvian coffees just go really well with the chicory. They balance them out. They're consistent coffees. They're clean. They're really beautiful. Actually, we just landed a container of our coffee for this drink last week, and I think I scored the coffee like an 85 points that we're putting in this. So it's nice coffee. So right now we're doing 2 fulfillments a week. So we're producing about 20-some-odd thousand of these little cartons every week. First, we roast the coffee, obviously. Here on the 75 kilo, that's Olivia, our roaster, roasting up the Peru. And then after that, we grind the coffee the day it's roasted, seal it up, put it on a pallet with the chicory. The chicory comes roasted and ground from the supplier. And then we take it to a brewery called Fort Point Brewery. It's an organic certified brewery in the Bay Area. This is Jen Apodacar, head of production for Oakland, and their brewmaster, whose name I forget. And then we brew a massive tank of coffee. So these tanks, the one on the right will start the brew, and the one on the left will go into when it's finished. There's about 700 pounds of coffee, 800 gallons of water. Figured how many pounds of chicory in each one. So about 700 pounds of coffee produces, or 750 pounds of coffee produces 11,000 little guys. This is what it looks like. It's pretty beautiful, actually. It's like fudge or something. There's the coffee and the chicory and the water, and then they cap it off. This is the top of the brew vat that you see. And then it goes through this fine mesh filter. When it gets filtered out, that keeps the chicory and the coffee particles behind. It is a pretty messy process still. There's a lot of cleanup. And then this is the unloading of the coffee from the primary brew tank into the secondary tank that it goes into before we ship it out. And then this here, it's kind of hard to tell, but you're going to see in a second, the coffee basically gets put into this big plastic bag that's in a larger plastic tote that can be put on the back of a truck, and then it gets trucked up to Clover Dairy for the finishing of the process and the packaging. This is what's left over after the brewing it out. So this is, I think the brewery, this is the part they hate the most because it's a little bit of a mess to clean, and we haven't found the best way to clean it yet, other than someone getting in there and scooping it out. And then finally, this is a finished concentrate, ready to go, 800 gallons, and that'll just get a lid put on it, go on the back of a truck, taken up to the dairy. So when we realized that the only way that we could really get this product out was to partner with the dairy, James had the idea of putting these in little milk cartons. These type of milk cartons in the US are pretty nostalgic for people. Anyone who went to elementary school probably had these milk cartons full of milk. So we came up with a really cool design. We thought a place we work with called Pearl Fisher, I think, came up with this design for us, and yeah, it's pretty cool looking, I think. So that's the Blue Bottle iced coffee. It's been really, really popular. We're now doing, like I said, 2 fulfillments a week. It's available in Whole Foods in California and Whole Foods in New York City. And we're looking at distributing it beyond that, in even in the markets where we don't have stores. But again, it's finding the right partners is difficult. We want to maintain the certified organic status of this, so we always need an organic brewery and an organic dairy to produce it. It's really helped our business too. In the Whole Foods where these are sold, whole bean sales for our coffees went up too as when these products came out. And we're really sort of thinking outside the box, and we're starting to see a lot of recognition for that. Probably many of you know we raised some funding last year, which has helped with this product. Oh, I still got another one. I'm not done. Oh, there we go. This is me actually drinking the very first one I ever tasted. And from a quality perspective too, we cup the coffee. We cup all of our batches of coffee. So this is just a normal production batch of coffee we would roast and cup. So we make sure it's good, the coffee going out. And then we taste the concentrate before it goes into the to the dairy to make sure the concentrate seems to be like the rest of the concentrates we have. And then before they distribute it, they send us like a couple dozen cartons that we do QC on before it gets distributed. So we also have control over the final product. It's really delicious. You know, it's certainly not a connoisseur's drink, but on a warm afternoon when you've been cupping like 40 coffees and still need more coffee somehow, it's good. Some sugar in it too. So anyway, we've been getting a lot of recognition for this. James was on the cover of Wired magazine. Actually was a little mention of it there. And then earlier, Rate, actually after this product came out, Fast Company named us one of the top 10 most innovative companies in food in the world. And we continue to think outside the box. You saw in that first picture a single origin black iced coffee. We're going to be coming out with that. It will be a pressure pasteurized packaged coffee. We'll actually planning on putting the name of the farm or the cooperative the coffee comes from on the bottle for that production run. We're going to release that in March. And then even within our cafes, we are always thinking outside the box. And this is something now where we launched in 2 cafes in the Bay Area, and now it's in all of our stores nationwide. And it's called Cascara Fizz. A lot of people make tea from the cascara, the leftover coffee cherries. We grind it. This is the best photo I could find, actually. It's a little blurry. We grind it, we turn it into a simple syrup. So we use organic sugar. It's organic. Actually, I'm working on organic cascara. And some soda water and a fresh squeezed lemon on top. And it's very refreshing, really great again for the afternoon. And actually, when you hold it up to the light, because of how we grind the cascara and filter it, there's little particles you can see suspended in there. It's really pretty. So that's actually something we're definitely looking at expanding more down the line too as well if it's popular. So anyway, that's a little bit about New Orleans iced coffee, and I think I covered everything you asked me to cover.
No, that's great. How does the iced coffee in the cartons differ from what you're doing in your cafes? You guys are such a sort of cafe-focused company.
Yeah. How does the product itself differ?
Yeah, the product itself. How do you think about quality control between the two?
Well, we do. The cartons are better. The cartons are just as good. I mean, in the cafes, we use NOLA as a way to get rid of coffee, not old coffee, but we only sell coffee on our shelves that's 2 days out of the roaster. So if there's any of the certified coffees that are left over at the end, which is just mainly the blends, which tend to be fairly well balanced, those become what they brew as NOLA in the cafes. So any coffee that's between 2 and 10 days out of the roaster is what's brewed in the cafes. So there's a little bit more diversity. There's a little less product consistency in the cafes. And then we sell the cartons as well in the cafes for people who want to take them away, but normally you just get it in a to-go ice cup with the milk and we do the concentrate. They make it on the fly in the cafes, the concentrate, they add the milk at the end.
And the whole milk piece of the ready-to-drink product, what was the process that the company went through to decide to launch with the milk and sweetened versus the black iced coffee?
Well, it's a more popular drink. I mean, hands down. In our stores, the New Orleans iced is up here. It's our most popular drink, hands down. So, and actually the process, we were working on both of them at the same time, but obviously we needed the dairy piece for the dairy aspect of it, and that process with working with Clover, all the pieces fell into place. There wasn't necessarily a plan to push one out before the other one. It's just how it worked out, really.
That's great.
Burgerville and really prepackaged iced coffee is competing primarily, I think, with the iced coffee and the milky iced coffee you get from fast food places. So when we were developing the iced coffee with Burgerville, we initially planned on just doing black coffee because that's the right thing to drink, right? You drink black coffee. And what we learned very quickly is that, well, no, you don't necessarily drink black coffee. Maybe you drink really sweet cold coffee or milky coffee. So that's what we did. And we put a whole bunch. So we put a whole bunch of milk in the iced coffee and put some vanilla in it, and we put some caramel in it, and it was super, super popular. Whereas if we had said, no, you know what, we're just going to do black coffee, that would have definitely made some people happy, but they would have lost a big chunk of their market to people who weren't too proud to put milk in their coffee. Even better.
So, yeah, and I guess the milk question then, as the theme of the conference, is building a world-class supply chain. In all of these cases, your supply chains have gotten really complicated.
Yeah.
Delivering this quality, consistent product to every consumer of a big chain, and developing this relationships with breweries and sugar producers and chicory producers, dairies, the whole 9 yards. I mean, can you just talk a little bit about that? And maybe the distribution piece of it at the end
For
as
us?
well. Yeah, for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know as much as I probably should have walking up here about that stuff. I mean, luckily, Clover is a really well-managed company, and their distribution is pretty much anywhere in California you can get Clover products. So that was just smart for us. Like we wouldn't be producing as many of these if we were out there selling them. There's just no way, other than for our stores. So Clover is great, and they have salespeople. And when people come to us and say, "Hey, we want these in the stores," we work with Clover salespeople. They sell the final product. And then also we have some folks. There's some marketing in the stores. Actually, I just saw a snapshot from Whole Foods recently that I forget what it says, but they have cute little stickers and all this stuff, and the refrigerators are right next to the cash wraps. They're really, in the first couple months, Whole Foods, we couldn't even keep up with production because they were so popular. So yeah, I think the chicory is the one thing that still I don't have a consistent supply. There isn't that many people in the world producing or certified organic chicory, it turns out. So that's a piece I worry about a little bit because it's still kind of ebb and flow, but working with Clover was great. Working with the brewery is great. It's always good to work with the brewery because then there's always free beer somehow. So yeah, it's been it's been a different type of challenge for me as a buyer, and I think for all of us working for a coffee company, just a much different product, a much different way of thinking about production and how you're going to get something out.
No, that's great. So, Nathanael, just to you, what's next? What are you thinking about and excited about with cold brew and with what Portland Roasting's doing in your cafes or with your clients?
The experimentation with different coffees and using different coffees as cold brew and moving outside of what we had historically thought was the only coffee that was good as cold brew, and then getting outside ourselves enough to provide customers and consumers with what they want and not silently and internally prejudging them if they wanted something that was different than what we wanted, and saying, just because you like something different than what I like doesn't make what you like wrong. That has really opened our eyes and opened our minds to the possibilities of doing things much, much differently than we would have in the past. So whether that ends up being us producing through a partnership with somebody else a bottled cold brew, Portland is just silly with packaged cold brew. I mean, my kids won't stop drinking it, and they're toddlers, and that's not good. But it tastes so amazing that I can't keep the bottles out of their hands. It's probably not healthy.
That's great. That's really interesting.
Also, cold, I don't know if I'm not now. Hear me out. Cold coffee also, I like to call our New Orleans iced coffee drink the gateway. I think a lot of people who came to Blue Bottle the first time came there because of that drink. They heard about this drink, it's a little sweet, and then they start exploring the other options that we have, getting into, espressos and brew coffees and single origin coffees. And we continue, even with these products that we release every year, our single origin sales increase by almost 5%. So, it's definitely, it ends up trickling upward in quality, that experience, I feel like. And I think, are we going to take questions? Is that going to happen?
Yeah, I want to take some questions from the audience if anybody has questions for our panelists. Let's have someone back here.
I'm from Portland as well, and I thought it was interesting hearing the description of what sometimes we as roasters like the fruity and floral coffee versus what some of our customers want, which nutty, chocolate, even maybe a French roast. So I'd like to hear a little bit more of your opinion on either offering one variety or two, or alternating.
So I didn't quite understand what you're asking me to answer. Sorry. Do you know, Marco?
I want you to tell me what to do. I'm just interested in hearing a little bit more dialogue on one, perhaps difference in what customers want versus our perception of what we want to promote, and maybe where the balance lies.
It depends, I guess, on how much coffee you want to sell. Like, I have a hard time bringing a coffee into Portland Roasting that I'm not excited about in some way. And it may not be that I'm excited about it because this is the best coffee I've ever had in my life, but I need to get excited about it in some way, even if that way is, I might not love this coffee, but I can tell that this is something that is going to really excite our customers. I don't always love coffees from Papua New Guinea. I always appreciate them, but our customers through Burgerville adore that Papua New Guinea. And when we had presented to them the idea that maybe we rotate the coffees on a regular basis and maybe we bring in something different, the resounding message from them was, we like this coffee. And so we give them that coffee. And they put milk in it, and they put vanilla syrup in it, which is thankfully organic and all natural, and caramel syrup in it. But they're so happy with it, and they love it so much. And that really has driven business to other segments of our business where we might get personally more excited about the product that we're selling because we have been willing to meet our customers where they are. When I started at Starbucks a decade ago, every day I drank a 20-ounce Frappuccino. Every day. Just like, I could not believe that they were giving me Frappuccinos for free, and I was going to get my money's worth. But then eventually I got tired of Frappuccinos, and then I couldn't believe that they were giving me free white mochas, and then free mochas, and then lattes, and then cappuccinos. And eventually I got to the point where now 90% of the coffee I consume is either a single espresso or a cup of black coffee, and that's it. But it took me 5 years of going through the process of starting with Frappuccinos and white mochas and lattes to get to where I am now. And I don't feel comfortable asking my customers to make that 5-year jump in one drink. And I think that what Blue Bottle is doing and what we are attempting to do is maybe we can't get them to where we are and where we like to be immediately, but we can provide them the best version of where they are that we can, and then hopefully interest them in pursuing what we have found to pursue.
That was a great answer.
That was a great answer. That sounds really good right now. Sorry. I just had a quick question about shelf life and shelf stability as far as the New Orleans iced coffee, and as it grows in popularity and the distribution needs go up and just the shipping and whatnot. Do you guys see that as an issue, or is that something you're comfortable with where it's at?
I think the biggest issue there would be controlling supply and demand, as we grow. Like right now, I would worry about overproducing and then it getting old. I think the shelf life's whatever it is for their milks, which I believe from the data production, it's about 4 weeks. There's so much data on how much shelf life testing we did. We had to do a lot for to get the product out. There was a lot of shelf life testing. So I think, for the distribution really is small. It sounds big, but it's only being produced in one place. We ship it in a reefer truck across the country for the New York stuff. So right now it's just produced in one place. I think if we, again, controlling how much you're producing, so there's no overproduction is probably the only challenge as we grow the product.
So what about as you guys are becoming an international company? I don't know if there are plans that you can talk about or how you plan to address that.
Yeah, there's certainly, we're getting a roastery open in Tokyo is the first step. It's certainly it's not like we're going to Tokyo. The idea isn't that this product follows us everywhere we go. We are certainly looking at the avenues that we'd be able to put this out in Japan as well. But we're not launching in February with this in Japan by any means.
Hello. Oops, sorry, too close. For Blue Bottle, over here. So you guys brew and bottle the iced coffee, and you market that through wholesalers. Are there any alternative markets that you guys attend to as well?
Sorry, what was that we tend to?
Yeah, you guys, you brew and you bottle the iced coffee, and you sell that through wholesalers, like Whole Foods, for example.
Yeah.
Are there other markets or other alternative ways that you guys get your product across to clients?
This particular product?
Yeah, or just cold
We
brew.
sell it in our own stores. It's available to any retailer in California who uses Clover. They can bring it in. So it's available in lots of stores, not just Whole Foods. Whole Foods we have a closer relationship with, but and it was exclusive in Whole Foods for the first month or so. But if you're any kind of store in California and you technically you can get it through Clover Dairy.
Okay.
Was that what you were asking? Sorry. Okay.
So Nathaniel's toddlers could conceivably order at their elementary school as if Clover was their milk supplier.
Yeah.
That's great.
Sorry. Stephen, you were talking about Blue Bottle releasing bottles that are labeled by specific farm.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Wouldn't you be limited by the size of lots? How many different farms would you be working with?
It would just be the way it looks like production will run with that. We'll go through about 100 bags of coffee per production run. And every 100 bags will change what the farm is. So we're also testing basically what coffee we want to use for that right now. I'm pretty sure I know what it'll be, but I can't say for the first run. And then just as we're getting more clever with how we do our packaging and marketing and stuff, I just work with whoever's doing that to get the name of the farm on there. So the first idea, we're starting with about 100 bag purchase that we would use for iced for that product. It's really still in development. We'll see what happens in March when we launch that. Anyone else?
Any other questions? Oh.
I have a question for Steve, or for both of you actually. So in your experimentation with the product development of cold brew coffee, what limitations for the flavor profile have you come across so far?
Like I said, we started out with mostly Central Americans, just washed Centrals, and then I personally, as a new introductee to the world of cold brew, I immediately wanted to go with my favorite coffees, because if it made washed Centrals taste like this, it must make my favorite coffees taste even better than they taste now. And so the first thing that I did when I got back to the office was I put a really bright washed Yirgacheffe as a cold brew, and I despised it. I mean, I love it to death, brewed hot. And the particular flavor characteristics of that Ethiopia in cold brew was just scary. And so that immediately put into my mind, okay, I can't just be willy-nilly with the way that I produce cold brew. We have to be much more intentional and test it. And right now we're getting to the place where I think that we're going to start producing blends of coffee specifically for cold brew, which is kind of an exciting new challenge for us.
I think one of our biggest challenges with regards to flavor is just the process itself. You know, when you take a process that you do normally in a bucket and then you put it like in a stainless steel tank and try to, you know, exponentially expand the production, things change, and we learned that pretty quick. And also with our black iced coffee, I think one of the challenges we had there is production. We don't want to heat that product, but we want to make it shelf, you know, be able to be available. So really it's just the processes of producing that will end up changing the flavor. You don't really get the same thing you got when you're testing it out. With our black iced coffee, we were looking to have it be pressure pasteurized so it's not heated at all. And we looked at like making an iced coffee that was a brewed coffee that became cold, but we just didn't like the flavor of those. So we're still looking to have a cold brewed coffee, but that also has a little bit of shelf life to it. So we think that pressure pasteurization is the best solution for that to maintain what we're looking for.
All right, do we have any more questions? Parting thoughts?
I was going to make the prize announcement.
Yeah, make the announcement.
No more questions. So I have a surprise. I was able to bring down 21 cartons of Nola in a cooler bag with ice. It survived the trip. So when you step out, there's going to be a barista out there giving you a little sample. There's only 21 of them, so if you want it, you'd better rush to the door and tackle everyone. But yeah, as soon as we wrap up here, you could step out and have yourself a little taste.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks to Nathanael and to Stephen. And enjoy your taste of the Nola cold brew, and we'll see you all back here this evening for the Harveys.